I was very slow. Like, I was very slow. I'd never driven before. My dad, I think he lapped me a few times. But eventually, he didn't lap me anymore. And then eventually, I lapped him. So obviously, there was that progression there. But it was just the first time I drove a car, I just felt alive. Jessie Combs, who has a land speed record, she passed away during an attempt, unfortunately, but she was a huge inspiration. But one of her quotes was, "The steering wheel doesn't know I'm a woman." Men play with cars, girls play with Barbies, like, you know, it's very, you are sort of pushed to your sort of lane, and I don't think you should be. I think you should definitely find your own path and find what makes you happy. Until I see a woman in F1, I'm not really going to be happy. And to be honest, the best life is a life well lived. A life authentically lived is yourself. Mentally, I've pretty much been at rock bottoms more times than I can count, and more times than I'd like to care to say. You know, there were times where I didn't want to be alive through what I've been through. And something just flipped in me sort of one day where I was like, well, if I'm going to make a go of it and I'm going to stay, you've got to go for it. You've got to put everything into it, like. So when I was 15, I was sexually assaulted by a guy I met through racing. Those
periods where you thought, did you actually think about taking your own life?
Yeah, definitely. There's probably more than one occasion. I just didn't want to be here. It was just awful. I felt like vulnerable. I felt picked apart. It was pretty much, there's nothing that anybody could probably do to me now that could ever make me feel bad again. I want people to know that even if you feel alone, you're not. You're not, because there are so many people who suffer in silence, and you shouldn't have to, because it was the first sort of time where I knew I was good at driving. I knew like I had something about me, and I knew that I wanted to do it, but it was the first time I had proof.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. Through sharing the stories of our guests, I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. This week I'm delighted to welcome motor racing sensation Jade Goodwin to the podcast. Jade, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. It's a lovely day in Brighton. Yeah. Nice to travel out of the smog of Stoke, so good to be here.
Listen, absolutely delighted to have you on. We've obviously got a mutual friend, Simon Nicholson from Handelsbanken, and when he shared your story and journey with me, I was blown away, and honestly, so inspirational, and just a real one. The podcast itself has sort of developed into something a bit more than just a business podcast, and it has about people's journeys and their life stories and what we can take and the lessons we can learn from them. And I think when he shared part of yours with me, I was, like I say, I was blown away. So really honoured to have you here today. So thank you for coming on. Awesome. Well, look. Again, with Series 5, we've started to do something a little bit new, which is our Life in 60 Seconds thing. So we're going to kick off with one of those first. So just tell me, in 60 seconds, something from your childhood that has helped shape who you are today.
So when I was 10 years old, my brother brought us tickets to go and watch a touring car race, and it was at Alton Park. And I mean, motor racing was on the tally. I've always watched F1, grown up with it, but it's never been something that I've been pushed towards or even thought I could even be in, because you know you watch it on tally and you don't. It's all the men, you don't see the women, so you would not, as a child, think that that's sort of something that we do. But obviously we got the tickets, and the second I was sort of trackside, I saw it, I felt the roar. We were next to the starting line, and they're holding them on the rev limiters, and you can feel the bangs and pops in your lungs. And I was like, oh my God, I want a piece of this. Like, this is fantastic. I was like, how do I get into this? I want to go with this. Like, this is fantastic.
Amazing. What a brilliant thing. I love things like that where you just almost, like you say, there's something in it that just sparks something inside you.
Switch, and I was just completely like, I need this. This is the life. Like, I want to do that.
Brilliant.
Dad, I want to do that. Sort of pointing at them. But yeah, we sort of like got our own car, and because we're not really from quite a well-off background. Yeah. So we got our own car and we started to race over the country, and that was just, I've been able to travel the UK through tracks, which is pretty phenomenal. And it's just karting for me in general sort of was very, very nice for me, very niche. Obviously not a lot of people know that karting exists on such a high level. Yeah. It's not televised, it's not well known. I mean, even we didn't know about it. We sort of had to find our own way. With the majority of races, it is very much a family affair. So I know 3, 4, 5 generational racers where they're sort of the dad, and then they pass it on to the sons, and then the sons pass it on to the sons. Whereas obviously, like, me and Dad sort of came into it completely green. But yeah, very, very special. Very got me closer to my dad too, which, for a sort of teenage girl at the time, then what do they have in common with their dad? Not a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Apart from moaning about the dishes, perhaps, maybe.
Well, talk to us a little bit more then about with your story, and just at that start, just tell me a little bit more, I guess, about life growing up and what it was like in that. So from 10 years old. So when did you first start racing? What was how old was you?
So I was about so I went indoor karting first, because obviously, like, you don't want to just chuck a 10-year-old out and something ridiculously quick. Yeah. So we went indoor, went with my dad, and my dad had been a few times before, over the years, and just starting there. And the first time I ever drove a car on track, I was very slow. Like, I was very slow. I'd never driven before. My dad, I think he lapped me a few times, but eventually he didn't lap me anymore. And then eventually I lapped him. So obviously there was that progression there, but it was just the first time I drove a car, I just felt alive. I had this buzz, the adrenaline. I actually sat in the car once I came in. I sat in the car for about 5 minutes because I couldn't physically get up, because I had that much adrenaline. I was buzzing. Like, it was almost like everything was firing in the brain, and my body was saying, yes, like, this is right, this is for you.
Wow.
It's very special for me.
Yes, amazing. And how long was the period from that first race to when you started lapping your dad?
I'd probably say it was a couple of months. We used to sort of go maybe once a week, sort of go for do sort of half an hour sessions. But obviously Dad had been driving on the road for 20 years at that point. And
a little bit more experience.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. He'd done a couple of go-kart races himself. He was very much a boy racer back in his day.
Okay.
One of his friends is actually Gareth Lloyd, who's a time attack driver now. But obviously, I think not quite Fast and Furious, but not quite very much boy racer, street racer sort of back in the day. I don't know too much about it, and I think that's probably for the best. Because sure. I think he's definitely glad that I have the track, because once that sort of ignited in me, I don't think I could ever really put it out, and to have the track to be able to go and blow off all my sort of speed, because obviously on the road you want to be safe. You want to, the speed limits are there for a reason, but on the track I can sort of go off, blow off all my steam, and then because I do want to go fast. That's my problem.
and what so coming into it though, even at that really young age, was you in the minority? Was there other girls doing it at that time, or?
There was another girl at the track, and I mean, we were sort of friends, but I feel like with girls in motorsport especially, because there's so little of us, yes, you would think that, we'd sort of team up, but no. In some ways, you don't want to be like the lowest finishing girl, because even if you're on a grid of 60 drivers and there's 2 girls, you want to be the girl that finishes the highest.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas for me, I genuinely think we should sort of form some sort of solidarity. Like, I've had sort of a bad weekend. So did another girl at another race somewhere, and we were in sort of the Repechage B final. So you had to, I think it was top 4 made it through to the main final, and me and her were sat 1-2, and we could have challenged each other, we could have crashed, we could have made a mistake, but we sort of pulled alongside each other, sort of, you know, gave each other the nod, and we finished sort of 1-2 because we knew, like, just get through, sort of team up in a way. But yeah, I mean, some of the girls I've been able to meet through racing have been brilliant. You know, we are sort of the minority, so it is nice to sort of look across, and even if you're not friends, even if you don't know each other, there'll be a smile. You'll give each other a smile because you both understand that it's sort of us against them. Yeah. And you want them to do well, and you want to do well as well. Like, the table's big enough. Like, we should definitely all try and get there. We are completely underrepresented, I will say. I mean, the W Series was really great in trying to, you know, getting these female drivers out there, like Alice Powell, Jess Hawkins, Abby Pullen, Sarah Moore, Abby Eaton. They all deserve to be as well known as any other male driver because what they're doing is phenomenal. But at the same time, I don't really believe that just girls racing girls and boys racing girls is what our sport is about. Because I think it's us and equestrian, and I think we are the only 2 sports where men and women compete on equal terms. And to me, that's pretty much everything. And obviously, like, when you're racing, you want to race the best, and that's the men at the minute. At the minute. We're coming for you. You'd be worried.
You heard it here first, right?
Yeah, definitely. But as a woman, you sort of have to do twice as good to even sort of gain, you know, like a man. So I saw a picture, this is a little bit off topic. There's a picture of Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, all together. And there's one woman sat at the front, and they're all Nobel Prize winners. And there's only one person in this picture who has 2 Nobel Prizes, and it was Marie Curie. So she had to have 2 Nobel Prizes just to her seat. So I do feel like that is sort of a reflection. I mean, sort of 100 years ago, we were still chaining ourselves to gates and trying to get the vote. So it has come a long way, but there's still more work to be done. Definitely.
It is. It's so. I had someone on here, Karen Dobre and Joe Child. They're both. So Karen works at Lewis Football Club. She was one of the directors at Lewis Football Club, and their whole thing is about equality, and they're the only team in the football league that pay their women the same as men, and which is incredible. But I spoke to her, and they've been doing that for 5 years, and I'm like, I can't comprehend why other clubs have not moved into that sphere, and look what the England football team done was amazing.
To see everybody get behind them and be like, come on girls, I had a tear in my eye. I was like, yes, it was finally. Yeah,
it really was incredible. I think to see everybody. How far we've come, but as you're sort of alluding to, there's still, and this relates not just in sport, but in business, in society as a whole. Actually, I talk to people within the tech industry, and women are so, and it's just it's crazy to see that we're still in that thing. Well, look, we're moving in the right direction, great, but we have still got such a long way to go. I've actually, my wife's a solicitor, and I'm started listening to this book recently called Invisible Women. It's unbelievable, and when you realise the small things that society as a whole, even the way that mobile phones, the sizes that mobile phones are made based on men's hands, even when crash test dummies in cars are based on men. So what does that effect have then on women when the crash? That blows my mind.
It's only sort of within the recent couple of years they've actually started making more race suits for women, because for the first sort of 5-6 years I was wearing men's suits, and obviously men are sort of more like straight shoulder to sort of waist, whereas women, we go in, we come out, we sort of, so to find suits that fitted, you were either massive here or tight here, and you could never sort of get the proportions right. But so it was difficult to try and find. Obviously, like, helmets are pretty much fine and everything, but the suits, and I mean, I'm in child sizes of gloves.
Oh really?
Yeah, I'm in small, extra small gloves. It was actually quite hard to find gloves that. They don't make gloves that small for car racing. They do, but maybe not perhaps in the brand I wanted,
Yeah.
you know, to sort of stick with the same sort of brand that I sort of stay with, or, you know, it is a little bit of you have to do a little bit more fishing for your sort of stuff. But yeah, like, women are definitely
just underrepresented, I think, in
Yeah.
that field. But it's amazing, like you say, people like yourself who are breaking that mould and are not frightened to go into that male-dominated environment and stand up and go, actually, like you just said, we're coming for you. We are can challenge.
We are.
And it's amazing, actually, like you say, that within sport as a whole, men and women don't compete at that level, but they do in racing, and you can take it to that next level, and which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is great. The car, Jessie Combs, who is a land speed record, she passed away during an attempt, unfortunately, but she was a huge inspiration. But one of her quotes was, "The steering wheel doesn't know I'm a woman."
Love that.
So the car doesn't know I'm a woman. The car is like the conduit. It's very much driver based, and obviously physically, like, I do think men and women are completely equal, but I do think we are stronger in different ways. And I think it's crazy how, like, I can grow a person, give birth to a person, and sort of go about my life. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
But men can't. And obviously, like, every man sort of came from a woman, and, you know, all sort of that sort of thing. But I do think it's crazy. Like, I guess I do see myself as one of the lads because I've grown up in motorsport with the lads. So I am very much more boyish, but you just never really, as girls, we're not really ever pushed into it. And, like, I've had people come up to me and say, well, it's not very ladylike, is it, to race?
Really?
And I just get so confused when they sort of come with that sort of energy and question, because I'm like, yeah, but what is a lady to you? Is that what you've sort of been indoctrinated with as a child? Like, men play with cars, girls play with Barbies. Like, you know, it's very, you are sort of pushed to your sort of lane, and I don't think you should be. I think you should definitely find your own path and find what makes you happy.
I love that.
Even if it's not what people expect. Yeah.
I really love that. And it's what's opened my eyes to a lot is having kids, actually, and having twins. And I alluded to earlier, we spoke a little bit off air, and I said, obviously got a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
But Luca, they're 8 now, since he was 2 years old, has been wearing girls' clothes on some days, and he just, as a society, we're so adamant on putting people in boxes. That, you've got to fit that box.
You have to be this, you have to be that, and you don't.
Yeah, and exactly that. You don't. We're just we're all human beings. Whatever that scale of more masculine or feminine or whatever that looks like is almost irrelevant. We're just human beings, and that's how we should look at it, and the society should look at it as a whole. And when you talk about where you are in racing and going, it's not ladylike. Why? It's because society has said, oh, well, women shouldn't potentially do that because it's a man's sport.
Yeah.
What?
Well, yeah. And there's all sort of like the women driver jokes, and I mean, I've seen some pretty bloody terrible men on the road drive, like, but say if I maybe had a crash, it'd be, oh, women drivers, but it's like there's none of that for the men. You see the F1 drivers chucking it off sort of every race, and but whenever the W Series, so there was quite a bad crash at Spa at the top of the hill through Eau Rouge, and there was oil on the track, and there was sort of a 5-car pile-up, and the amount of ridicule and criticism I saw on social media, but I've seen the same similar crashes in F1, and everyone's like, oh, are they okay? Like, and it's just very much, you know.
We've got, like we're alluding to for the whole start of this conversation, actually, we have come far, brilliant.
Yeah.
But
still got a bit to go. I mean,
long way to go.
Until I see a woman in F1, I'm not really going to be happy. And if the doors are slowly creaking open, but we just got to kick them in at that point, because, I mean, we couldn't vote.
Yeah.
You know, a woman...
Yeah.
Like Serena Williams, a woman winning that many Grand Slams was unheard of, you know. And athletes, especially women athletes, I do find that because we have to train to such a degree, we don't look feminine. We have the muscles, we have this, that, and the other. You know, and you know, you get like the sort of comparisons. Well, she looks like a man, but she's an athlete. You know, the gender is like obviously, like, it's whatever you want it to be, especially nowadays. I don't think, like, I don't see boy, girl, I see person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a friend who was Jamie, raced karts, now is Jess, and sort of the ridicule and the attitude, it's a man's sport, motorsport is, and the fact that obviously people had known her for years, and then she then sort of came out, like, she faced so much stigma, like, her family, there was, you know, a bit of abrasiveness there with it, like, people don't completely understand it, like, you know, the older generations, they can't really get their head around it, but I don't see her as this, that or the other. She's a driver. We're drivers.
And that again is such a brilliant message just for people listening, I guess, that from a gender point of view, but from actually using, and sport has got such a power, isn't it, behind it, and when you can use that, and like you said, she is just a driver.
Oh yeah,
and whether she's
brilliant.
been a him and she's had that transition, and now she's a she, and that's how she identifies. Amazing, and how brave that she's actually been able to
definitely
to go through that transition and still go into walk into that, I guess, the pit and go, right, I'm now Jess, and I'm going to go out and still race.
Yeah, I'm here, and I'm. You can't stop me, and you can't. You shouldn't have to. But I do think that, like, you should live your own life very much to that degree, because if people are trying to put you in this box and tell you what you should be, you're not living. Who are you living for? You should live for yourself more than anybody else. And to be honest, the best life is a life well lived. A life authentically lived is yourself. And if people don't like that, then, well, stay in their lane. They can stay in their lane. That's not their life to sort of have a say in. It's definitely not. I definitely think you should, you know, whatever you feel, however you sort of, what side you sort of, if you go more feminine, more masculine, like, I definitely think you should just do what makes you happy, because life is so short. And we're only here. We only get one go of it. Like, if we live our life in fear because of people of what people might say, then you're not. You know, it's not going to be a happy life for you, and that's really sad and upsetting.
I think that's so powerful, and it's a really, really valid point. And I spoke to a guy on here once, and we was talking about it. We'd done a mental health awareness sort of episode.
Yeah, mental health too.
We was talking about that, and he was talking about a book that he read, the 5 regrets of the main regrets of the dying, and actually the top regret of the dying, and this was from a palliative nurse who had done it, and the biggest regret of the dying was that I didn't live a life true to myself.
Yeah.
So if that is the biggest regret of
or
people
I lived
on their
in
deathbed,
fear as well,
and surely that should just, when you listen to that, all of us, like as you've just alluded to, just live a life authentically to who you are. We haven't got to be put in boxes, and we've got to, you know, just be ourselves all of the time. And whatever happens in our lives, whatever our achievements are, or whatever that looks like, ultimately, as long as I've lived an authentic life, I'm okay with that.
So, like, through high school, the boys used to laugh at me. They used to call me Lewis Hamilton, like, oh, you race go-karts, you know, all this, that and the other. And as they've sort of grown up, they've sort of been, like, if I've run into them in my hometown, or if they message me, you know, they see that I'm racing cars now, they're like, oh, you're so cool, what you're doing is so cool. And it's like, hang on a minute. Back then, you were one of the ones basically trying to say not to do it. And it's very much like, well, he's sort of laughing now in the same sort of degree, but you know, you can't, if somebody tells you can't do something, that is more than enough reason to go and do it. And if somebody's laughing at you, then give them a reason not to laugh. And if someone tells you can't do something, then definitely go and do it. Definitely go and do it. Wipe that smile off their face, because there's power in that.
Where does that, I'm intrigued, where does that mindset come from you? Like, where does that, like, because obviously you've had that from a young age, going into a sport where, you know, potentially at that time, young girls were seen as...
Haven't always been this way.
No, but that's what,
very much.
But yeah, like that, from a young age, have you had that sort of, if you say I can't do it, I'm going to go and do it anyway?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love it. Racing especially is like my first love, and I feel sorry for whoever I might marry one day, because there will always be second to the racing, because that will always be my first. You never forget your first love, do you?
And sure.
It's very much like that. But so obviously we'll probably get into it a bit later, some of the stuff that I've experienced. And mentally, I've pretty much been at rock bottoms more times than I can count, and more times than I'd like to care to say. But I just got to a point where I'd gotten that low that the only way was possibly up. And it's very much like I don't want to stay here, because, you know, there were times where I didn't want to be alive through what I've been through. And something just flipped in me sort of one day where I was like, well, if I'm going to make a go of it and I'm going to stay, you've got to go for it. You've got to put everything into it. Like, so, you know, eventually you know, it will stop. And it's just surprising. So like a lot of the time it was very much just one more day, just do one more day, just do one more day. And that turns into sort of do one more week, do one more month, try another year, keep going. And especially for me, like I've been lucky that even though things didn't progress as quickly as I wanted to in motorsport, because I wanted to be racing cars when I was 16, I've made it happen at 24. So you sort of, well, I've had help to make it happen at 24. I've been very lucky and very appreciative to the people who've got me here. But even though it could be rain, clouds, the sea's rough, everything's really bad, eventually, if you just keep going, you could even go further than you could ever imagine. Like, looking back at some of the stuff I've done, I've raced in Italy as part of a girls' team. I've been to America and driven a kart. I've raced at the track where I first saw my first ever race. And, you know, I think every now and again we definitely forget to stop and smell the roses. Like, we do need to take a minute and be like, well, look how far I have come. How far can I go?
Yeah. That is such great advice. I think something I'm really conscious of and I'm really aware of, and people I've spoke to on here, that we're in a society where achievement is the goal, and you go, I've got to get there, and actually it's, we don't, for me, what I've learned, and what certainly a journey I'm on at the moment, of trying to get to a point where you're present in the moment, all of the time.
That's
and it's a really difficult, because I'm ambitious.
Your head's going 100 mile an hour. You're slating yourself because you're not where you want to be at this time frame, and it's like, well, if you just keep chipping away, eventually you're going to get there. Like, you will. You will be able to get there eventually.
And I think you're right. It's about that, like you said, actually acknowledging those achievements where you are right now. Like, if you was to say 2 years ago, you know, look at where I was 2 years ago, and then look at where I am now, and you go, wow,
completely crazy.
I've
Different
had
person.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where, but it's although you still go, well, I'm on that journey, I'm still not where I want to be.
But I'm not as, this person's this high and this person's here, and it's like, well, yeah, but maybe they're working also hard to get where they want to be as well, and it is probably sort of comes from a place of jealousy in a way, and you know, you want that, you know, when you want something as bad as, when you want something really badly and you're in an industry where it's very competitive, to see other people who you may have beaten in races get, you know, contracts and signings, it can be extremely disheartening, because you think, like, I've been chipping away at this for so long. But also, like, I was quite lucky. I was able to win a very big race to me, and that was the switch flick moment where I was like, well, all those people who told me I would never win a race at PF International, and I did win a race, and this year I won my second race there. So all these kids, all these people telling me that you can't do it, and I chipped away for 4 years at it. 4 years I walked past the podium hoping one day maybe, just one day, I might get a fifth, or I might be able, you know, I might get a trophy, I might be able to stand on it. But I've stood on the top step twice now. And
love that.
It is hard to believe in yourself when you have no palpable proof. But as long as you do believe in yourself, and if you love it that much and your heart's in it and you want it, you will get it eventually. Even if it takes longer, even if, you know, maybe sometimes you don't, some of the races you don't win, even the ones that you really wanted to. You know, it's all part of the journey. Like, to be able to win a race, you've got to really learn how to lose, and you've got to learn how to be gracious, because the person who has won that race has worked extremely hard. Yeah. So you've got to be gracious. You've got to congratulate, even if you've raced your heart out and you come second and you think, I should have had that, bloody hell, like I should have had that. You still go over, you still say well done, because it's an achievement. Like
that's amazing. I'm keen to tap into actually that when you look at failure, I guess you look at actually in racing, how many times you said you stood on the top of that podium, but how many races you've had where you haven't, and you how we deal with failure, I guess, and whether you do you look at those times when you did walk past the podium not winning as failures, or what's your thought process on that?
At the time, probably failure, kicking myself, but now it's like, well, that was another lesson learned. You know, there's no failure, there's only lessons, there's only, well, I know for maybe next time and let's go again, like, because that was that outcome when I tried this, so let's go again and maybe try this, you know. Especially in race starts, you can sort of get ready and you can be like, right, okay, everybody's going to bunch to the inside because that's the safest. But sometimes you can hang it around the outside and make up a couple of places. But the outside man is very much a dead man in places like, you know, normally, because you can just get hung out to dry by cars. But then again, you could plan all this before the race start. You put down on the grid, you go to that first corner and there's a crash. And this happens, or you can't quite get where you want to be. So it's very much like instinct in the moment, but you just got to trust yourself to just keep chipping, keep going, you know, keep trying, keep trying. If you try get an overtake on somebody, you can't pull it off, try again the next lap. You know, where are you strong, where are you quicker, where are they quicker? So where do you need to work to stay, and where do you need to work to be able to get that move done? You know, it's very racing as well. The amount of data, onboards, telemetry, like, oh, well, you're a tenth of a second off the accelerator through this corner. A tenth of a second, and it's less than a blink. God, you know, it's so analytical, and you can like I can find myself getting really annoyed at, like, because I do a lot of simulator training as well. If I can't quite get the lap time, I can sort of spit my dummy out and then, you know, sort of like go off in a huff, and then the next day I'll come back to it, I'll go again. You got to just keep trying.
It's such a brilliant, again, resilience, and it's a word that for me, resilience has been used, especially since lockdown and stuff like that. People have come out, like, a lot of businesses had to close, and we all went through a completely different, it was a really tough time for so many, but actually that word come out, and people, because we did all as business owners, but everyone in general, didn't we? We had to come out of it and show that resilience. Listening to you talk, and I love an analogy. So you're using the journey analogy, that actually every race is just a learning curve. But where were you on, like, visualization? Every time you walk past that podium, did you visualize, I'm going to stand on that top of that podium one day?
Well, funnily enough, I had a bucket list, and it was like, go skydiving, go scuba diving off, like, you know, Africa with the bull sharks. Like, I'm very much a thrill seeker. I do like to, it makes me feel like I'm alive by doing something that I'm actually really scared of heights. So doing a skydive for me would be, but I know for a second it's the initial.
Have you done one?
No, not yet. I'm still putting it off, but I will do one.
It's amazing.
I'm not saying that, but I will do one. But the second I know I step off and I'm flying through the air, I'll probably love it. I'm a bit worried because I might actually like it more, but it's the initial, when you're on the platform just before you sort of take and this sort of applies to life, you do sort of come to an edge every now and again in life where you've got to take a big step off, and hopefully you don't fall and crash. Hopefully you sort of
you fly.
Hopefully you can fly, and sometimes you will fall and crash. But
it's the lesson.
Sometimes you will fly, but it's just.
You've got to take that leap.
You've got to take, because if not, you'll spend the rest of your life kicking yourself, you know. Or maybe I should have taken this business opportunity. Like, my dad very much could have started his own business at, like, a few points in his life. He never did, because he just didn't, you know, he just didn't believe in himself. And now he's very much pushing me into just, well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Worst comes to worst, you're at home with us. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's such a brilliant, like, for me, I've always had the mindset of actually, I look at something. I'm a half glass full type of person. So look, I'll give it a go. And I always go, what you can say, what's the worst that can happen? But someone
it can always get worse.
But it could always get worse.
Always get worse. And sometimes it does.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes it does.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But
and that's it. But it's always if you flip it on its head and you go, actually, what's the best thing that could happen? Like if I do this, and what's the best thing? What would happen if that did work out? And what would happen if I did start that business, or I did go and do that extra race, or I did go and do that? And what would happen if I did win it? And where would that take me? And when you go there in your head, actually, that could be amazing. Because when you go to the worst place, actually, maybe is it not that bad?
Though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
The worst place is easier. We're very analytical, social media. I am the social media generation, so especially Instagram, editing, Photoshop. It's very much we don't feel like we're good enough. We don't feel like we're pretty enough. We don't feel like we're rich enough, or we don't have these nice things, or the materialistic sort of side. But there's always people who have absolutely nothing. So for me, it was actually when I was 17, I started to work in a homeless hostel.
Wow. Okay.
And so it sort of messed with my head, the fact that I'd spend all my week with people who have nothing. Some of the people, everybody's story is different. Everyone's got one to tell. But some of them, like their parents, awful upbringings, like the worst of the worst. But then some other people, great upbringings, but they still sort of fell down the beaten path. Some people were absolutely lovely sweethearts, people who have got nothing but will always stand up for you and will be nice to you and have that respect. And some people who don't. Some people who are very sort of mean, sort of hard people. And then obviously I'd spend my week with those, and I'd try and, be supportive, be helpful, try and sort of be there for people, because I understand what it's like to not have people there and not feel like you can tell people stuff. But then I'd go to the track at the weekend and I'd pull up into my grid bay, and the people next to us, their motorhome's more expensive than my house.
Yeah.
And we don't live in a tiny house, but it's like, it's big enough, like it's 2-bedroom, me, mum, dad sort of thing. It's great. It's enough for us. I don't think you really need much more than that anyway, but at the same time, like, to have the sort of people who have nothing, people who have more money than sense, it was very much
quite humbling.
It did, and it definitely sort of helped me to sort of grow up a little bit in the sort of, because I was very much my generation, I want this Gucci bag, or I want that, and at the same time, like, a bag's a bag. Even if it's a 10 gram bag or a £10 one, it still does the same job. The watch still tells the same time.
That's such a great element of self-awareness from someone so young, actually. Like,
I was quite lucky
to have that experience, but to put yourself in that environment to go, because that's where a lot of self-awareness comes from. Actually, because how many 17-year-olds would go and work in a homeless place? So that's credit to you for that, I guess, looking at that, and just because we are in a society where it's materialistic and consumerism.
We just look up all the time.
And but what I found fascinating about this, and like I said, we spoke off air, and the amount of, I've had some people, like I say, multi-millionaires on here, but actually a few of those have said about that, they've talked about struggles with mental health, because actually that achievement, that money doesn't actually mean it, because all actually Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what do we really need in life, and what are we here for, and what does that, and I'll talk about success, and we'll go on to that a bit later, but actually what do we actually need? We're here, why are we here? To love and be loved, right, and be around the people who we care about.
Definitely to laugh.
And,
I think life is for laughing. If you can't, if things aren't like, so exactly, for example, if like the car breaks down or the engine blows up, if you can't come in and laugh about it, then you probably cry, and I prefer to be laughing, like, it's just, you've got to sort of set yourself up in that sort of way to, because life is very dire at the minute. The news so dire. I struggle to watch the news at times, because it just seems to, however worse it gets, it always sort of goes down another level. It's always doom and gloom, and but you've got to be able to just try and find the beauty in the small moments, like if you make yourself a really nice cup of tea, like sometimes it's just good to sit and enjoy a cup of tea. But then sometimes it's good to sit on a beach on holiday and enjoy the beach on holiday. Like, the two different things. You've got to sort of cherry pick and try and be present in very small things or the very big things. But you've got to take it all and...
That's again, there was a really interesting podcast just perfectly on this point. Johnny Wilkinson spoke about it actually, and he talks about the scoring that winning goal in the World Cup, and thinking that was all his life and his career had all been gauged that moment. And he said it lasted for about 30 seconds. The reason he went into depression afterwards because there wasn't that big euphoria moment that everything was geared towards, and exactly what you're saying about actually just being present in and taking note of those smaller moments in life. He says now that he gets the same amount of satisfaction from that as he does from washing up. Because when he's washing up, he's in that moment and he's taking that moment.
Cooking a really nice meal, if you put your spices in and you take pride in it, it tastes better.
Absolutely.
if you cook it with love, it tastes nicer.
I love that.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. When I eventually did get on that podium, I thought, right, this is it. I'm one of the only women to ever stand here. This is the moment. They're going to sign me, and I never got signed. Wow. But yeah, I mean,
why do you think that? What
somebody will pick me up, somebody will see, but nobody did. Nobody sort of. I mean, I definitely got a lot of admiration and props and support from people, but at the same time you can sort of base your whole heart and you can work for years towards a goal, and the second you achieve it, it's not quite as big as you have bigged it up to be. But at the same time, it's like for me, I can remember coming over the line, and you sort of have the in lap, don't you, in motorsport, where you have to make it back to the pits. I was crying my eyes out. I've never thrown my arms up high. I don't know how I didn't pull something, because I was screaming. I couldn't see where I was driving. I was crying. My dad was jumping up and down on the pit wall, and we were sort of pointing at each other, and it was this huge sort of moment where I was like, right, I can do it. Have that.
I love that.
But it didn't quite open as many doors as I wanted it to, and that's obviously was quite a hard reality as well at the same time. But winning that also got me to where I am. It gave me self-belief, because I didn't really believe in myself. I had no confidence. I used to walk through the world thinking that I was somehow less than every other human. I really didn't. I was really extremely unkind to myself. I used to think, actually, if I had a friend who spoke to me the way I spoke to myself, I would not be in the room with that person for more than 30 seconds. Wow. But because it's you don't register it.
Self-care is such an important thing, and actually we don't even. I remember I was listening to something from Jay Shetty, and they sort of said about, you and your partner and your kids, where do you put yourself in priority? And you go, well, I'd always put my kids first, and then the wife, and then me. And he said 100% you should be top of that list every single time.
Who do you love most in the world? And you could list off family members, this, that and the other, but you're not on that list.
Yeah.
And you should be.
Yeah, you really should. And I think that's a lesson for everyone, people listening to think about. I'm guilty of it myself. I'll be answering that. I think we all are. But I think, you're right. It's something that we need to take, because it's the great analogy someone mentioned on here, the great analogy about when you're on an aeroplane and put your own mask on first, and that's so true. And if we do take that into life, that's how we should be, and we make sure we're okay, because then you can be the best version of yourself to them people around you you love.
And then those people benefit because you're in a better place, but you're also, you can't help. I mean, a lot of people, I do think, do sort of try to help others to try and then help themselves in that respect, like through the reward of it, but you got to sort of pat your own back and then go more. And I'm not saying ignore people for yourself, don't be selfish, but know when to be more selfish in the name of principle and care, because definitely it's definitely important. I don't think people, because we're just trucking on through life, the TV screens, work, TV, bed, kids, trying to get this deadline for work, trying to drive here, I need to do a food shop, I need to do this, I need to do that, and you just need to every now and again stop and be like, how am I today? How was today?
Yeah, but very so true and so poignant. I think even as I'm listening to you, thinking to myself, I know I need to be more like that.
Definitely, like you do.
Yeah,
even I do to some degree. I'm here saying it all, but at the same time,
we
I'm
don't
probably
always
not
practice.
as.
You
don't always.
Right. You're right. Well, look, we're coming to that part. We're going to do the next life in 60 seconds, as we do. Often you sort of spoke a little bit about failure there, and I'm keen to obviously talk about some challenges you faced in life in general and your sort of career. So we'll do our life in 60 seconds, and then we'll go into that a little bit more detail. So just tell me about a challenge you faced in your life and what you learned from that experience. Go for it.
So when I was 15, I was sexually assaulted by a guy I met through racing. He was quite a bit older than me at the time. Had only just turned 15, and from that I sort of pretended that it didn't happen. I didn't speak about it because I just thought, like, oh God, this is terrible, but I need to sort of move on. And eventually it sort of ate away at me inside, and I got to the point where I told people and I got some help, and it went to court. It didn't go my way, as it more than often does. I mean, I'm very lucky to even have a court case. I mean, I've been to a few of the groups, and a lot of the girls have to go to uni with the guys who assaulted them because there's just simply not enough evidence, and they are definitely failing in that aspect. But I was lucky to get a court case. Very unlucky it didn't go my way. But that was only sort of this time last year that it sort of ended and finished. But for me, he had taken quite a lot from me, and he wasn't going to take the racing as well. And for me, that was overcoming that and getting through that it was one day at a time at very certain points. It was, I mean, if you saw me last year, you wouldn't recognise me. I was in such a terrible state. I raced a week after, because it was in the championship. I raced a week after the court case. I had to withdraw my entry and go home because I just completely broke down. And obviously getting above from rock bottom there, it just sort of tore my life apart. But now I can't stay in the past forever. And I'm very much, why not now? Like, why not can I live? Like, the best revenge is a life well lived, and it always will be. But, you know, why not? Why not? Why can't I overcome this?
With that, are you okay to just around that? So you was 15, you say, at the time, and you was sort of someone within that, in the racing environment, and that. How long was it before you then, you know, from that, go back to that point, I guess, before you actually spoke to people about it? And
so it happened when I'd not long turned 15. I didn't speak about it till I was 18.
Oh.
So I sort of had 4 years of family members not understanding me, parents saying, what's wrong with you? Like, I struggled with a bit of depression, anxiety. Sort of moving to secondary school was very daunting for me, and I did develop some anxiety, and I wasn't really in a very good way to start with, but that just sort of pulled the rug out from under me, and I just really struggled. It, you know, had an impact on my exams. I couldn't stick it more than a year at sort of college before I had a mental breakdown again, because it just, you know, I just never dealt with it. I ignored it, and I just, you know, I couldn't get past it though, and it just kept on creeping back into my life. I couldn't keep it together. It was really, like, racing especially racing is very much a mindset game, and as much as it's you against everybody else, it's you against yourself and you against the clock. And, you know, talking to people has helped. I've had, like, the therapy, you know, more to suit that, and that really helped me sort of come out the other side of it. But there's very much days where I just didn't want to be here. I thought, what was the point? But once I sort of got that win and stood on that podium after knocking away at it for years and trying, and, you know, it definitely impacted. Like, my racing definitely suffered as a result of it, but I'd never stopped. I just kept going because it's the one thing I had. He'd already taken so much. He's not taken the racing, because that was what I loved more than anything. And that was pretty much therapy for me. You know, got the helmet on.
Was it the racing was what?
Yeah. So I could, even with, like, everything going on, I could be beautifully in the moment the second I got behind a wheel. Like, helmet on, world out, waiting for the flag. Like it's a very special sensation. I know not everybody sort of understands my nerdiness for racing, and definitely not, but just finding that one sort of focus and that one thing that I love more than anything definitely dragged me through it. And obviously it was heartbreaking to withdraw from that race, but then this year we raced there again and I won it. So, you know, you can always try again.
And you talk about, obviously, with your mental health and how low you got. You say those periods where you thought, did you actually think about taking your own life?
Yeah,
is that
definitely.
Really?
There's probably more than one occasion. I just didn't want to be here. I thought, like, how bad is and it was all very much internal. Like, I didn't feel anger to anybody else, but I just sort of ripped myself to shreds on the inside. And I was very cruel with myself, and it's a lot of like self-blaming as well. It's very sort of, nobody talks about it. I mean, I think statistically 1 in 4 women will experience some form of it in their lives. Now, if you know more than 4 women, which most people do, and I've been in rooms full of women before, and we've all shared a story, and maybe some of us have been as bad as assaulted, but then some of us have been harassed, some of us have been touched, some of us have, you know, there's always, every woman has got a story to that degree of, you know, all of us do, and it's not really, it's not good, it's not right, it's awful for us, but I mean, I was lucky to just be able to have the racing as like my rock, and I was able to hold on to it, like, oh well, no matter how bad this week is, I'll be good by the weekend because I'm at the track, you know.
Yeah. And I'm keen. Do you remember the point where you did then speak out about it, and what was it that? What was the switch for you that made you?
Well, I think when I was 18, I think I'd just come out of sort of a bad relationship, and relationships can be very hard when you've, you know, been assaulted. But I think it was a bit of 50-50 in that one. I don't think it wasn't the right relationship. And I sort of hit rock bottom, and I went to the doctors, and I was on antidepressants to get me through my exams, so everybody thought, but in reality it was to get me through what had happened. And I did go to the doctors, and I sat down, and he goes, "What's the problem, Jade?" And I just burst into tears. I didn't even know where to begin. And eventually, you know, I went to he recommended counselling, never had any before. And I thought, well, why do I need to talk about it? Like, why do I need to give it the attention? But it wasn't giving the attention, it was venting. It was getting it out, because if I didn't, like, I held on to it so tightly and so deeply that nobody knew. But what I needed to do was just let it out and let it go. And I couldn't do that without first letting it out. And I first told the counsellor, and then he recommended, oh, well, there's this brilliant charity in Stoke called Savannah. They offer free counselling, they do group therapy, and, you know, there's children who go there as well, which is really upsetting as well. But the fact that that service is there is really beneficial. And through Savannah, they offer, you know, there's an ISFA, which is like an independent sexual abuse advisor, and they sort of help you with the court process and get into it. And eventually I reported it to the police, and then COVID happened and lockdown, and I waited 4 years for a trial. And once we came out the other side of COVID as well, it was very much oh, well, your court case is in a year and a half. So I'm holding on to it for a year and a half. And then the night before 5 o'clock, oh, it's not going ahead. We've postponed it for September, which is months and months and nearly a year away again. And that happened I think that happened twice. It got postponed. He'd obviously lawyered up at that point. I met my barrister 10 minutes before.
Wow.
So it was very much, but the police assured me that, you know, oh, don't worry, we'll do it on behalf of you. And I'm not saying that the police are bad, but they sort of made a ring roll of it, and it wasn't great. Like the whole sort of meeting your barrister 10 minutes before when they've been working against you for 2 years isn't, you know, you're not really going to have much of a chance. But yeah, being in court for me was probably the worst experience of my life, even above what had happened. Because I'd sat with what had happened for many years, but the court was awful. Like, it was, like, I've never been in court. It's not how it is on telly. It's very much you feel like you're on trial as well, especially. And I know they need to ask the questions, and I know they need to vet this, and I know they're trying to trip you up with events that have happened. You know, I know they're only doing their job, but at the same time, like, it was just awful. I felt like vulnerable. I felt picked apart. It was pretty much, there's nothing that anybody could probably do to me now that could ever make me feel bad again, because that was the worst of the worst for me. It was just horrible. But and then
do you feel now, obviously there's been a decision made, and where are you at now? Do you feel you're able to close the book on it now? And
I'm definitely trying. Obviously, you have good days and bad days, but sure. I'm definitely trying to put it behind me, because if I live in the past, then what future am I going to have? Because I need to. It's already taken eight years at this point in my life. Well, 8 years. I can't let it control me and make. I can't let it keep me in that place forever, because I deserve a better life than that. I deserve a life. Stumbling. I deserve a life well lived, because I've been through something horrible, and I'm sure a lot of other people go through really horrible things, and you do deserve, the sun to come out eventually. You do deserve to be happy.
You do, and listen, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that when I said at the beginning about how inspiring your story is, and the racing aside, just that in itself is genuinely really inspiring, and people, because one of the bravest things in the world is to ask for help and be able to show vulnerability, and
it's hard to ask for help.
It really is, but you've done that, and by doing that will inspire hopefully many other people who are listening, and others to sort of come forward. So I'm just really grateful for you being able to come on and do that, Jade. So
I just don't want anybody else to sit there hating themselves for years. I want people to, I did everything right, it still didn't go my way, but you don't deserve to sit there tearing yourself apart. You do deserve it. You do deserve to be loved. You're not subhuman. Everybody's equal. Like, even if, like, I people who, like me compared to Lewis Hamilton as drivers, he's still just a person. I admire him. I put him on this pedestal. He is one of the greatest drivers of all time. But he's still a person. And I think we forget that. I think through the tally screen, through the lens, through the phone, I do think we do have this separation, and we're all human at the end of the day, and really we all deserve to be happy and to feel comfortable in ourselves. Like, I was on the tablets that I was on, I gained quite a lot of weight, and that, self-esteem issues from that. But whatever size you come in, like, it still doesn't matter. As long as you're a kind person, and you're kind to others and yourself, more importantly. As long as at the end of the day that you woke up this morning, and by the time your head hits that pillow at the night, that you did your best. Even if you didn't do your best, even if you still just tried, that you deserve to, go to sleep peacefully and.
That's a brilliant way to look at it. And like you said, especially from just 24, you are
24.
Just 24. What you've been through in your life, more than many people in their lifetime, and yet to come out of it and still have that sort of, I guess, level of self-awareness, but that mindset, and obviously racing's helped with that, I guess, and to get you into that place. But just I think. Just so encouraging, and a sign to people out there that are listening, that are maybe in, a bit of a dark place and whatever they've been through, because we all have those moments, don't we, in life, some more serious than others, and whatever that looks like. But actually just the lessons learned from you speaking out and being so open and vulnerable, and actually, like you say, asking for help, listening to that, for me, is just a huge sign of bravery. And I think that is what other people listening will be able to take, and I really hope that they do. So you're amazing. Thank you.
Stop it, you're making me cry.
No. You've got me going as well.
We're all emotional in here.
Listen, but look, thank you so much, and let's look at let's go back to the racing, and we'll talk about
my love, but
something that
I want people to know that even if you feel alone, you're not, because there are so many people who suffer in silence, and you shouldn't have to, but people do. But yeah, you're not alone. Like, we're all in this.
and at the time of recording this, we're going next month. I'm part of something you might have heard of. It's called the Baton of Hope, which is an initiative and it's coming to Brighton, and it's all about suicide prevention, suicide awareness. And I think actually how amazing to be able to have this conversation with you a couple of weeks prior to that event, listening to you and where you've been on your journey and how you've come out of that. And just a message for everyone, exactly that, we're not alone. And actually you don't have to suffer alone. You can just ask for help, and there are people there.
In motorsport, it's not really common for people to sort of, because it's a game of mental toughness. So to be vulnerable is sort of, it's not really heard of, and this isn't really sort of done before. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to just come and talk about the racing solely, but at the same time, I can't erase pieces of myself. And it's nice to sort of be able to maybe strike a chord with some people, and because I definitely needed somebody to pick me up. So maybe hearing something that maybe I could say, if that helped just one person, that's like, it's worth it. But
and honestly, it really will.
It is,
it will inspire. I'm sure so many.
Very scary to be here and do it, but it could do some good. So it's worth it.
And like I say, just thank you, I guess, for just being so brave. And like you said, you alluded to it a little bit earlier about actually, racing is a part of you, and although it's a massive part of you, you're still you, and you've got a life, and you're a human being, and there's things that will go on. So you, although you may, other people look at you, Jade Goodwin, the motor racing driver.
I would say the majority of the paddock doesn't even know what I've been through. I'd say the majority of people I've known for years and years, people who've known me since I was like 13, 14, 10 years at this point, like, still couldn't have guessed. Because obviously when I'm at the track, I'm at the track, I'm happy, I'm happy to be here, it's good vibes, it's like, let's drive, let's get in and turn the wheel, let's go guys. But yeah, it's definitely strange to be talking about it, because it's not something that a lot of people do. And I don't want to sit here and sort of be like, poor me, I've been through this and blah blah blah, but at the same time, like, it's not poor me, it's this has happened to me. This is probably why I'm not, haven't been great on some days, and this is why I am great on some days. But I can't pick and choose the parts of me. I sort of have to lay it all on the table, be like, this is me. I want to be a racing driver still, even though I've, I have suffered. I have really suffered in some ways. But I want to be a racing driver. And once I sort of got through the other side of the sadness and the struggle, it's like, well, why not? Why not me? Why not me?
Do you feel like you almost can use what's happened as, I guess, to use a car analogy, as the fuel to drive you on more? Do you feel that sometimes? Or?
Maybe. I definitely don't think I could throw myself as hard at the racing now if I hadn't suffered. But I don't think I could, I try to be so kind to people, because you never know what anyone's going through. Like, even the person who's the strongest and always the most stable can be going home to an absolute nightmare for them. And you never know, because people don't talk about it. And
because we wear our masks, don't we? We go,
we do.
Like you just said, you'll turn up sometimes at a race and you'll be positive,
and happy,
but actually, and no one's known.
No one knows
what you was like prior to going. And I, again, that's such a brilliant message to people that actually just kindness has got to be the go-to for everyone, because even people who are being arseholes maybe to you, or being a bit horrible to you, but actually, and it's hard to do that sometimes, but to take yourself out and actually what are they going through to maybe, and it's a difficult place to be in life and society. You think, well, he's just being an arsehole, or she's being but actually maybe they are going through something, we don't know that, but actually to try and create a society where we're more open, we're more honest.
We're so disconnected these days
because of social media as well. Like you said,
we're
you're
more
from
connected than ever, but less caring and disconnected and disinterested.
Because we're conscious of putting our highlight reels on social media, and we're constant. Look, I'm guilty of it. We're ever smile,
and your best pictures, and with your best holidays, and with your best cars, you know. But at the same time, like, you could be crying. So, like, I've had races before where I suffered quite badly with anxiety. I've woken up in the morning, thrown up with anxiety in the hotel, and then got to the track and raced. Wow. And nobody knows I've had my head in the toilet in the morning, and perhaps I've gone out and done really well at the track, and people just see, you know, you've put the mask on, you try and step into this best version of yourself, but nobody knows that this morning I was vomiting in the toilet because I was that bloody anxious to even be there.
Wow. And again, like you say, I think it's just a great message to people. Wouldn't it be, again, an amazing world that we live in, where kindness is the first thing that comes to everyone, but actually people that are more open and honest, and it's okay to say that
people would say you're weak
stuff.
Or, you know, you're not being strong, but at the end of the day, I think, like, we are a social species. We do need a sense of community to feel like we belong, and especially nowadays, that's probably why mental health is probably so bad, because we have no sense of a community. We have no sense of, you know, you don't know the person who lives 3 doors down from you, really, do you?
No.
And back in the day, everybody in the street knew each other. You know, everybody 100%. Was.
Well, look, I'm 44 now, and it was like that. So I remember growing up. We lived in a little cul-de-sac, and we used to everyone up and down the street.
Everybody
We'd know
knew
everyone.
Everybody.
We'd play mini Olympics, a lot of us, and all the kids were similar ages, and it would just be it was a sense of community, and it's definitely, like you say, it's definitely lost that. And even with the influx, like, you know, with AI and stuff like that come in now, even more so going down that route, and I'm worried about that sort of side of things. And I think actually, no matter what happens with that and how scary that sort of side of it is, we crave human connection.
We do.
And COVID showed that a lot. Like when we couldn't see people, and you couldn't just go and cuddle. I'm very tactile, so you couldn't go and cuddle someone.
Go and see, I couldn't see my nan, and I love my nan. She's great, but she obviously was really, like, they're lonely, and we were lonely. I'm actually interested to see what the studies will say about the effect of COVID in a few years' time, because it's going to be dire. Like, it was pretty. Obviously, I had a court case through COVID. I had a breakup really badly just before COVID, so I was sort of sat down in the dumps, more alone and rejected than ever, and you know, but you sort of, it's only once you hit rock bottom that you can sort of go up. It can always get worse. Even though you think, oh, how can it get worse? It can always get worse. You can have nothing. But even I know, like with work, again, people who have nothing, and they're the most jolly, kindest, easygoing people ever, and it's just like it's definitely you got to try and approach it with a smile and a joke and a laugh, because if not, it's a really hard and crushing world to be in.
And do you can you still been put like that? Was there a point where you, like you say, about hitting rock bottom, that you got there, that you can been put in that time? That was the worst part. Was it the court case? Was it the end of that where you went, right? Well, and I've got to come out of it.
Once I got that call that it didn't go my way, that was pretty much. And eventually, sort of 3-4 months after that, I made the sort of unconscious choice to sort of come off the medication. I mean, it wasn't an overnight thing. I didn't wake up one day and I was like, right, it's been many, many years to sort of get here. But obviously, I read a lot of, sort of like David Goggins, or I really try and keep myself there. And a lot of the time as well, it's just keeping myself away from things that aren't good for me. So obviously, like, I'm a girl in my 20s. I've been on a few nights out. I've drank. I've, partaked in a few things, maybe, I think everybody does at some point, it's very the sort of uni sort of, you try it. And obviously, like, maybe seeking a lot of drink to sort of get through the tough times, so maybe, don't drink all the time now, maybe you sometimes you got to cut a piece of yourself off, even if it's like your crutch, even if it's like the only thing getting you through. But if it's not serving you, you've got to cut a piece of yourself off so that you can grow again. It is very much, even if like you find comfort, so like maybe me, I probably did have a couple of glasses of wine to sort of at night, and it wasn't good for me. I was pretty much just waiting every day to be able to go and have a drink at some point, because I was really low. It was really sad. I know that's probably not the greatest thing to hear from a racing driver, but
we do what we do to get through each day, right? Like you said,
everybody has a poison that they sort of
of course
get through it. But yeah, I mean, I don't not drink. I mean, I have a drink now and again, but I don't sort of drink myself silly, to sort of numb anything. It's very much a sort of, not everything in moderation, but everything in moderation.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And look, we're all like that. It's a go-to thing, isn't it? Like alcohol is a thing. I love a drink, and I have done over the years. But I've definitely, I think, as I've got older and know the effect it had on me, and I've come away from it a bit more, and I'll still go out and have a good drink, like you say, but like in moderation. It's not a case of that, but knowing actually the effects it has on if you are struggling from mental health.
But when you're using it to sort of cope,
that's
sort of when you need to, even though it's like it could be the only thing that's keeping you going through it, the fact that you can just like, numb the pain in this way, you've got to sort of cut it out. And so I mean, I probably have like a beer now, well, every couple of days, probably maybe sometimes every night I have a beer. I sit down, I have my tea, I have a beer, I watch telly. I do drink beer as well, which is quite funny.
Nice.
I do like gin. I'm not a complete lad, but there's just something nice about a cold beer at the end of the day. And beer is plentiful at every track. There's always somebody who's got one. So I would imagine that's where I've acquired the taste. But yeah, you do definitely have to sort of, when it sort of becomes part of the problem, you do sort of have to say, oh, hang on a minute, right? As much as I'm holding on to this is getting me through it, at the same time, you got to stop it and sort of just let those emotions, let those thoughts, let them out and then let them go. Because if you hold on to them, you're just, you're carrying this big bag of rocks on your shoulder. And
I can imagine, and again, listening to your story, is that how it felt up until a point? Like you said, maybe after the court case now, and maybe that you've started to put that bag of rocks down.
Well, I came off the sort of antidepressants and the antipsychotics because I was really sort of not off the rails, but I was really, really poorly mentally, really poorly, and I sort of came off the tablets. And I know tablets are really beneficial to people, but the second I came off, I had this sort of clearness back to my head, and I started to take the rocks out of the backpack eventually, one by one, because I had to sit with these emotions that I've been putting off with tablets and wine or drink, and I had to sort of, they all came up, but I sort of accepted it and let it go, and sort of tried to get on with it a bit more. But it was difficult. It's not tough. It was tough. I didn't really want to but yeah, it's at the same time you've got to sort of go against what you want for what you need.
Because like you say, you need to get over that next
Yeah,
hurdle, and how you
definitely.
get over there, whether it's whatever the coping mechanisms have been up until that
Yeah.
point, you go, actually, this is not serving me.
I mean, as
need
long
to
as you
make-
swap it for something better, like
Yeah.
and I'm not talking like, oh, swap a drink for a better drink. But like for me, I struggled to sort of sit with myself. So now I go to the gym a lot. I swim, even though it's probably, well, I do swim a lot, but I just find myself in my brain just, I've got no phone, I've got no hassle, I've got no outside world. I'm just swimming along for an hour, and it's funny to where my brain ends up with trails of thoughts, stuff that I never even, stuff that not anything like, you know, horrible to myself, where nothing, you know, not anything that's relevant, but I'll be like, oh, I do wonder about this, or oh, I do wonder about, oh.
Swimming's great for that.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it
I
is.
swim a lot, I swim in the sea most morning, but exactly the same. It's that,
Yeah.
because even when I used to run and I listened to a podcast or I listened to something, you're
Or
still
music.
absorbing.
You're battering your brain with.
You're still absorbing something, aren't
yeah.
you? Still whereas swimming, you don't.
No,
you just go in and I'm
you're
like,
kind
okay,
of sort of
listen,
stuck there until you're done.
Yeah.
So you just sort of think,
so
yeah, I
awesome.
do. I think I'll have pizza for tea. Yeah. You know, actually, the best pizza I ever had was in Italy. You know, and the track in Italy was really cool, and it'd be nice to see those girls again. And how you've gone from what I've thought about my tea, you're thinking about this, and it is. I think it's really healthy for you to sort of think about stuff that doesn't really matter, but. It's just nice to sort of stop the bombardment of your day, of your schedule, of your phone, of your, you know, because we're always watching something. You come home, what do? You put the telly on, you get Netflix, you eat with the telly on.
You're so
Yeah.
spot on. Again, it's back to that thing we was talking about earlier, where you say about being in the moment.
Yeah.
You can only really be in a moment if you're not absorbing so much content.
TikTok especially. Oh my God, I do.
And you can lose hours, can't you?
Hours. But like, if somebody came to you and said, "What was 5 videos ago? What was it?" Would you be able to tell them? No, you wouldn't. And I was like, "Oh God, you're right." So I better put that down a bit more now.
But they're designed, aren't they? All social media is designed to get you into that rabbit hole thing, and you just go, and you can lose so much time. So it is this. I guess it's being mindful of that. Do you meditate? Have you ever meditated?
I used to quite a lot. I don't really. It did help me, obviously, when I was really struggling, but now I just feel. I'd say my swimming's probably my meditating. You know, just going along and just thinking about stupid stuff. One of the things I got taught in counselling was you could imagine yourself sat on a bench and you're watching a river in front of you and there's a tree, and your problem is a leaf and it falls off the tree, lands on the water, so it has that impact in you that yes, there's this problem, and then you just watch it go down the river. And then there's another one and you watch it go down. And trust me, like you can wake up the next morning, by the time you finish meditating, that leaf is back. Like even though you've watched it go visually, you've mentally let it go, that leaf can always come back. But eventually that leaf won't be, you know, eventually it will go down the river.
Love that.
And you'll be able to get rid of it.
Look, tell me, what's a typical day look like for you as a racing car driver? What's your typical day?
I definitely say I ramp it up a bit more when I've got a race on, but I work from home, so I wake up, I sort of, I do game very late at night. I'm really bad for
really?
it. I do need to cut it out. But I don't, you know, working from home, I don't have to wake up like at a set sort of super early time. But normally I try to be up for sort of 10 at the very latest.
So you're more of a night owl, your state?
Definitely, yeah. But I can be a morning like if the track opens at 5, let's go. Like,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
I can flip very easily when it's what I love. But yeah, I sort of wake up, grab some food, have some. I drink a lot of like matcha tea and stuff. Like, even though it tastes bloody horrible, but it's good for me, and it's very much a. Yeah, I take my vitamins and go downstairs, do a bit of work, do a bit of computer work, sort of get my sort of work out of the way. I don't have a huge load of work to do. Obviously, with the mental health struggles, I got quite a light workload, which was really helpful. I sort of have quite a wide time frame to get the stuff done too. So I'm really lucky in that respect that I have that. But then, so say like before Silverstone, I wasn't going to be able to test there before the race. So I put 600 miles in on the sim around Silverstone. I train in the gym, so I'll sort of do I'll run to get, running's really good for you. I hate running. Like, even when I played football, I played in goal.
Okay.
I used to horse ride, and now I race cars. I like my sports where I sit
yeah,
down.
yeah.
So
I love that.
I do. There's a pattern here.
Yeah.
There's a pattern there.
Give me a seat and I'm fine.
Yeah, pretty much. But I run to try and get the blood pumping,
Yeah,
get my. It's good for you to get it sort of there. And I do my weights, I do my training, and then I'll swim. So I sort of spend about probably 2-3 hours in the gym every day, and that's really good for me. And then I'll cook tea, and I try to mindfully cook whatever. I mean, sometimes you sort of just
Do you
have
enjoy
like.
cooking?
Yeah, I do actually. I really enjoy it. It's every now and again though, I'd love to just chuck it in the oven and then it's done in 20 minutes, and then I pull it out and I eat it. I'm guilty of being lazy, but every now and again I'll make like a really nice curry, and I'll be like, this spice and this and that, and I really try and get like nice fresh, and like I sometimes I do just go absolutely mental and get really fresh ingredients and put this huge thing together and sit and admire it. Like,
it's an amazing thing. I love cooking.
It's really nice.
It's a therapy for me.
You can get really annoyed with it at times, can't you? Because it is bloody, like, we never stop eating. It is relentless. It's just always.
It can be time consuming.
Yeah.
And it's not, my wife is the complete opposite to me. She will go microwave curry and that's it. If she's eating on her own,
I'm
she's
guilty
like
of that too.
She goes, because I'm like, she says, because it's going to take you an hour and a half to prepare that and cook it from scratch.
And then you've got to do the dishes.
And then I'm 3 minutes. Well, look, I want to also touch on. Tell me about how do you mentally prepare for a race? Like, is there a process that you go through, or
like a few days before? It's very much like, right, okay, so I'll normally like watch a lot of onboards of other drivers. I mean, onboards can be a bit hit and miss because you could get, somebody who's not a great driver, and if you're watching that, it's not really the right sort of way to take a corner. But then obviously you get the flow of it, and I do prepare very much with onboards. So with karting especially in my season, we go to a track once a year. So some of the times you watch the onboards, you go through your data from last year, your notes, like, so we ran this setup here, so maybe if we set the car up to what worked last year. So, you sort of set yourself up and, steed for it. But very much packing the kit bag is a very important one. Cleaning the helmet, washing my suits, because I like a nice sort of comforty, bold smelling suit, because it is a very smelly, sweaty sport. I'm not complaining about the smell of the cars. I mean, the clutches, the brakes, the petrol. I love all the smells of it, but also I do like to, have a nice fresh suit. But packing is very much a mental part of it, because you're packing, you load the car up, driving down to the track, watching the onboards, printing the track maps off, familiarising yourself with what you're going to do. But pretty much now, because I've done it since I was so little, there's not really any sort of, I don't sit there and visualise what I'm doing. I used to do quite a lot, but been doing it that long now, and the car tracks, I've been to the track sort of 3-4 times at least, and I just sort of get in, and I just sort of trust that once the visor sort of goes down, my body knows what to do. It's such a strange sensation. I've had it a few times where I've been driving the car and I've had this weird moment of, I'm not consciously doing this, it's just happening.
Wow.
It's really strange, like your body just takes over. It's sort of muscle memory as well, I would assume, but it's very much like you're performing a dance, because obviously you brake and then you're turning the wheel this much, and then you're dancing it over, and you just picture perfect to the curbs, and you're trying to be smooth as possible.
But it must be, talking about being in the moment, like, that must be like for you in that car, just being in that moment.
I'm at one.
Yeah.
I'm at one. It scratches my brain, and in a way nothing else does, and it's really nice. It is great. When you have an itch and you can't itch it, and then you finally get to itch it. That's pretty much what driving does for me. It's like scratching a part of my brain, and it's just, the sort of dogs and their legs start going. It is everything. It is everything to me, sort of. It's really cool to be there at the track. Like, you drive into the track, the windows go down. Like, even if it's freezing, like, the windows go down because you can hear people on the track, and it's really, I just enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
I don't.
You can tell just listening to you speak and the
I love it.
passion. Like you can tell it just pours out of you. But then I guess that love for something that you, like we alluded off air earlier, was saying like that's never work. It's just my passion, something that you love doing, and you will get up early, you will work till late, you will do all them things. And then you talked about when you was in Arizona, you do the long days, and you're working at like 6 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock
at night. By the time you can get into bed, because.
But you love it, right?
It didn't feel like, oh God, I was tired. Like I was really tired, but I didn't even feel it. Yeah. I could tell I was tired. I knew I was tired, but at the same time, I was like, right, I can't wait to wake up and get to the even when I wasn't driving, like I can't wait to go to the track, or we're in the workshop today, right, need some tyres doing, or you know, what can I build, what can I do this, do you want me to do, like, it's just anything, like, and motorsport is a busy sport. A lot of the mechanics are pretty much, you know, you hear stories. So like we had the drive shaft go down at Snetterton, and the mechanics worked pretty much very late at night. They grabbed their dinner, and then that was it. 11, 12 o'clock at night, they were working to change that. Wow. It is a full day, but there's just something about it that I love, and that so many people love. Like the passion for motorsport is unmatched. With like I've even met like the fans, especially the fans. They keep the sport alive because they're watching it, but at the same time, like the love that they have for it just from the sidelines. Like I got asked for my autograph, and that was a very strange feeling to me. I'm like, what, me, mine?
That's amazing.
And yeah, I mean, the guy who asked me, I've ran into him a few times now. He always has a picture with me, and it feels very, very cool. But I'll have all the time in the world for that guy, because the fact that he comes to me and he wants a picture with me, and his passion for motorsport, even though he doesn't compete, even though he doesn't do it, the fact that he goes to every weekend and he's there, it's just this love. It is a huge passion, the sport is. And I would imagine like a lot of the sort of petrol heads and the sort of motor racing sort of people, they understand it to win. Like if I watch videos of like F1 and I see somebody win a race, so like if you know, for example, the sort of younger generation coming through, when like Charles Leclerc, or when Max Verstappen, or when, I don't know if Russell did, but whenever they do win their first race, when Checo won his first race, it brings me to tears, because even though I'm not at that level, and I know, but I know what it feels like to finally have all those years finally accumulate, and some, you know, you've won, you've done it, you've worked so hard for so long for this, and you've done it. It's so emotional to me. It's just, it's definitely my heart.
I love it. And what if you pinpoint a highlight of your career? So would it be the British Open?
Probably the British Open.
Really?
Yeah, that was walking past that podium for 5 years, and then standing on the top step against really seasoned pros in the sort of class. There's 5 people that could have won it, but they didn't see the little girl who they'd never seen before. There's nobody to them, because we never moved in the same circles. We'd never raced on the same track again. Completely unknown, complete wild card. This young 20-year-old girl comes out of nowhere and just wins it. I think it definitely, like, a lot of people were really confused, bold. They're thinking, Jesus, like, where's this chick come from?
Who doesn't love an underdog story?
But I know, it's great. It was great.
I'm buzzing.
It was terrible as well, because Friday, my dad was pretty much didn't really want to do it anymore, and winning the A-plate sort of got him back on board. But the Thursday before, and I was going down Friday, bear in mind, he had to work. I was going down Friday to build this car up, because it was just a frame. I had to get the engine, I had to put a seat in it, I had to get the pedals to myself and everything. And I built it up all Friday, and I put the seat in wrong. And so all day Saturday, when Dad finally came down, he was, you know, we sort of missed a lot of testing. We didn't really, and we finally got it out, the one test session sort of before qualifying. And we were third quickest. And that's never happened before. And we were thinking, third, that's a podium. Third quickest. Like, that's a podium. Like, that's... Like, I was thinking, like, I was still lowballing myself, sort of thing. And I thought, well, third, that's close enough. That's close enough. That's a close, you know. It comes down to who wants it more. I was like, third, that's close enough. Anything can happen. That's close enough. If I really, 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 really try and get on with it, it could happen. Wow. And it did. And honestly, like, that was pretty much monumental.
And although you said about the point you thinking, oh, what am I going to get signed now? And you didn't.
Yeah.
But was that in that moment, was it all you dreamt it would be, standing on the top of that podium?
Everything. I mean, obviously, like, I struggled really bad with mental health, sort of up and down.
Yeah.
I was happy for 2 weeks straight after that. And I mean, 2 weeks straight, I jumped out of bed for 2 weeks. And
Okay.
I mean, a lot of my family aren't really into motor racing. It is very much sort of me and my dad. My sister's, you know, supportive as she can be, but it's not something that they are necessarily into. And obviously, like, what sort of family has a girl who wants to be a racing driver? And it's not as common. It's not, you know, pretty left field. But to have dad there and to win it, like, it was just so special. It was. I even now, like, I still have the trophy, and there's a moment where I got it and I kissed it, and it still has the lip balm imprint of where my lips were, and I could clean it, but I'm not. I'll clean the whole thing, but I just leave that little patch there, and I still have the trophy in my room. I have the O plate on my wall. It's still pretty much, and a lot of people actually from the paddock started to call me O plate Jade for a bit. And with lockdown, was it lockdown? Yeah, with lockdown not coming, like, was it lockdown or was it? I don't think there was another. I think the O plate got cancelled the year after,
Yeah.
so that meant I got it. I could keep it for another year because there was no race for it to be taken off me. So everyone was sort of saying, like, oh, you're so jammy, you know, you sort of got another year of it. And I did get another year of it. It was very jammy of me, but at the same time, like, O plate Jade. Yeah. I was O plate Jade. The O plate is coming up next, this year's one.
Yeah.
It's not at the track that I won it at, but it's at a track I've finished second at before. I've gone well at before. So hopefully we can bump that number up to 2, because if you do it once could be a fluke. Maybe you got lucky, but twice is concrete. But I didn't even think I'd have 1 5 years ago, and now I'm like, right, come on, 2 this year. We'll make it 2 this year.
What's so beautiful as well to hear you talk and look in your eyes and see
the sparkle, you can see
the pain. It's so inspiring
it is
and lovely to
me,
listen
racing
to.
Is.
And you can tell that. You can just tell, and people that will watch this on you. I urge anyone that's listening to this, when you do listen, watch it on YouTube as well, because you can see in your eyes. I love it, honestly. It's absolutely gold, and there's something so inspiring. Like, young people out there listening, I'll be showing my twins this video to watch them, and just want them to take away from it that, listen, find something you love and look at what it can do, and just find something you're passionate about.
Even if you're not the best at it. I mean, I certainly wasn't when I started, but, like, I wanted it so bad that eventually it was gonna. I was gonna get it. I was gonna get it one way or another. And I mean, being in cars this year, I mean, I've been extremely lucky to have Simon. Simon knows Matt. Matt has the car. Simon got Warren House Accounting to sponsor me, so I made it to Silverstone, and then, you know, at Best of British, Skerritts, and, you know, to have all these sort of guys to, you know, chuck some money behind me so I can go and do it. Like, it's very much a pinch me moment. It's very emotional. I don't, even though I'm sort of very low level in the cars, it is still extremely expensive. Cars it's an extremely expensive sport. And if I did ever sort of make it up to a higher level of motorsport, and I was having, like, quite hefty sponsorship behind me, I think I'd probably cry. Like, I don't. It means that much to me to have somebody hear my story, believe in me, and then sort of go, well, here, we want to help make this happen for you. And it's, you know, very much still why me, but at the same time, it's like, I will not let you down with this. I will not let you. I've been waiting for this opportunity. Like, I will not let you down. I want this so badly. And definitely having sort of a hard, sad couple of years, it's sort of given me the drive to sort of be like, well, if I don't pursue this now, if I don't try my hardest now, what I'm not going to have a happy life, am I? And it is the one thing that makes me happy. For years,
and look back and no
it has
regrets.
made me happy. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, but that's it. I think that's it. Like, it's just looking back and going, you've given everything and you've given it your best shot, and and look what you achieved. It's such and like you say, it's taking those moments to look at, especially what you've been through over the last few years, to look at where you are now. And what an amazing journey that's been, and through the low points, as low as it got, to where it's an incredible, inspiring, amazing story. And wow, thank you for coming on and sharing it with us. And I think, look, we're coming towards the end, so we're going to finish with a couple of this is I always talk on the podcast about, and again, for me, that narrative around what success looks like and how we measure it. So I'm always keen to, when I've listened to people's stories, where it started, where they are now, and obviously where they're sort of going. But let's do our last sort of life in 60 seconds. Talk to me about what success means to you.
Success would mean to me being able to do what you love the most is your life. And obviously that for me would be motorsport. But you've definitely got to stop and appreciate how far you've come, because we always sort of have our heads down trying to trudge on forward, and we never sort of look behind to see, oh my God, I really have gone on. But I mean, one day I do dare to dream that I may have a go in an F1 car at some point. I mean, that would be even a historic one, even, you know, a very really old one, to just be able to, you know, what I saw on telly from the ages of sort of 2-3 years old to maybe being able to have the chance to have a go in one of those would be monumental. I think I don't think I could ever be sad again if I got that chance, you know. But yeah, I mean, definitely success for me would be to be able to build my life within motorsport, and because it is one of the only things that has kept me happy, makes me happy, and I would just be so grateful if I could actually pull it off and be able to make my life within the sport up. That has given me so much.
Amazing. And tell me, what does the future hold? Where do you see in motorsport going? Is that goal F1? Is that where the dream and the ambition that you go, oh, there's a chance I could get there?
Yeah, I mean, well, F1, there hasn't sort of been a woman in F1 since the 60s, and I do believe they are trying to push it and trying to find the right girl, but it is very much still like the doors aren't completely open yet, which is really sad. I mean, for example, in touring cars, when I first watched it when I was 10, it was all men. Now you flip it on now and there's Jade Edwards. And to just have that representation there, that there is a woman on the grid. And maybe she is completely slated. She's had she maybe has a hard race and doesn't perhaps get the result. But nobody's slating the guys finishing behind her. But just because, you know, she's a woman and she's, you know, she stands out, just to have that representation there means more than what a mean comment on social media could be.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely. And just to have the representation there, it means a lot. And I just want to, you know, realistically, you know, realistically your goals are a lot shorter rather than, you know, I mean, for me, F1 pinnacle, it's the best. I would have, but realistically, maybe, hopefully, I could drive, you know, sports cars. Maybe if I could be ever be lucky enough to get in a sports car, maybe I could do endurance racing. Maybe I could make it to Le Mans. Maybe I could make it to touring cars and come full circle. That'd be so cool, actually. That would be very cool. But yeah, just motorsport's one of those things, like, people ask me what I want to do and it's just like, I'd drive anything at this point. Like, I would drive anything. But obviously people want specific goals, and for me, definitely, but I would drive anything. The wheel, the engine, all of it is just everything for me. But yeah, I definitely, Le Mans would be cool. Touring cars would be amazing. Because that would be definitely a full circle moment for me, because sort of standing there 10 years old watching them go round. Autumn this year was really strange sensation because I raced on the track where I first watched my first ever race, and it was sort of a weird moment. We actually have a picture of me when I'm 10 on the track like this. It's through the last corner, and once testing had finished on the Saturday, we took my helmet up, and instead of holding like the bridge up in the background, I was holding my helmet on the corner.
Love that.
You know, sort of 14 years later. So you never know how far you can go until you try. But yeah,
well,
that would be very cool.
I certainly listen to it, and I'm sure all the listeners as well will wish you every continued success. But being mindful actually of just how far you've come already and where you are, and like as you've alluded to throughout the whole conversation, which again for me is so self-aware. Actually, take them moments and listen and really, you know, like you listen to you talk about that British Open win, and honestly, your face lights up, and that's something magical that you bottle, and
it probably saved my life in some ways, that win, because it was the first sort of time where I knew I was good at driving. I knew like I had something about me, and I knew that I wanted to do it, but it was the first time I had proof. And it was validation. It was the first time, like, all those people who said, oh, why do you do this, you're shit, like, and I've had that before. I've had rich kids come to me and it's like, why are you racing, you're shit? And I'm like, well, it's me and my dad out the back of a trailer, and you're paying thousands of pounds to a race team that does this every weekend, and we're still on the same. So it's like, you know, and then winning that was very much a watch this, I can do it, you know, I can do it. You can't tell me I can't do it, because I can. If somebody tells you you can't do something, makes you really want to do it more, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, chew on that, you know. Have that. Absolutely,
that as well. Put that trophy in there.
Should have brought it and popped it down on the desk.
Well, look, we're gonna finish off now with just our final one, which I always sort of ask. Just tell me your one rule for living a fulfilled life.
Stopping to appreciate how far you've come, and even when things are going wrong, try and find the laughter in it. You know, try and laugh at the silly stuff. I mean, you can have everything go wrong and you can laugh about how dire the situation is. I mean, you can cry about how dire the situation is, but you can also laugh and say, oh, well, bloody hell, look at where I am right now. You know, you can always go the other way with it sometimes, and I think we forget that. But definitely appreciate like how far you have come. You know, every day can be a challenge, and even if getting through yesterday was your a big achievement, then you carry that, you take that, you hold on to that. You find what you love and try and make it happen.
Amazing. Jade, honestly, like I said, I said at the beginning in the introduction, I was blown away when someone else told me about your story and journey, and to have the honour to actually sit and chat to you and you share it with me has been honestly a real privilege for me, and I'm honoured to have had you on. Thank you so much for sharing, but actually just sharing your story so openly, honestly, vulnerably, and
scarily.
Bless you. But honestly, it's incredible, and without that, it will inspire so many people. And your incredible story that you shared with us today. So I'm really, really grateful for it. So thank you.
Thank you for your time and the opportunity to be here, and everybody who's actually probably made it this far listening to my horrible voice. But you know,
it's incredible.
But thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Listen, we wish you more standing on that podium,
more
even more.
P1s.
Absolutely. We're keeping an eye open on your career.
3 races in, and we're 2 up this year, so
we're looking good.
We can go. We can maybe go for a few more.
Amazing.
Keep pushing.
Listen, I wish you all the best, and thanks again. It was great.
Thank you for having me.
Is a wrap.